Good afternoon, Chaos Kalatos, with another roster review. This time for one of our newest members of Legions, Robbisimo. He's, like myself, another teacher, so I'm really excited to get a fellow teacher in our ranks. Robbie's looking specifically for recommendations on Sith raid teams. Now, at first, I'm like, all right, let's see what we can put together, see if I can kind of scrounge it, get stuff for you. Then I realized, Robbie, you have almost 8 or 9 fairly solid Sith raid groups practically ready to go. Just got to make sure they're modded correctly. So we look in here, and I look, you got plenty of Gear 12s to work with, lots of Gear 11s, so you done a really good job focusing your roster and really concentrating your power into some really great teams. Much better focus than I myself have. I have a higher galactic power, but less Gear 12 tunes. So I'm impressed by that focus. But while I was looking through and kind of figuring out what teams you had, what kind of mods to use, I noticed one thing that stood out and just glared at me in the face, and that is you have no Jawa engineer, which means you cannot get critical damage mods yet. Critical damage mods are the bread and butter for 90% of the attackers in Star Wars Galaxy of Heroes. So my first recommendation would be to stop farming anything else out of the guild store until you get Jawa Engineer to 5 stars. Okay, you have to be able to get really good crit damage mods in order to get competitive damage in the raid and reach the potential that you have. If you could get solid crit damage mods or even good offense mods to replace them, your roster is capable probably of 7 to 8 million damage in the Sith raid, if not more. Because you've got the groups, you just need the mods and gear maybe 5, 6, 7 tunes, and you'll have phenomenal Sith roster. So going from the top, phase 1, looked at your Raid Jedi training team, which is really, really, really good. You got all 3 Zetas on Rey, both Zetas on R2, and 1 Zeta on BB-8. This is fantastic. Now make sure when you're putting this team together, R2-D2 and BB-8 are your 2 fastest. They need to have your fastest speed mods, and they need to be able to go first and go often. Raid Jedi Training and Scavenger Ray and Resistance Trooper Ray really should have a crit damage and a crit chance set while still maintaining, I believe, somewhere around 100 speed. So you really want to try and scour your crit chance, not crit damage mods. For now, crit chance and offense mods to get as much crit chance as you can with triangles that have crit damage primaries. So here where it says primary stat critical chance, you probably want to try and find one that has critical damage plus 36%, because that's going to be huge. Now, your Rey and Resistance Trooper, you're also going to want to try and get those Health Steal Gear 12 pieces, because this is where the bulk of your damage is going to come from Rey and Trooper. So you need them to stay alive. You need them to stay alive for a long time. And if you get that Health Steal Gear 12 piece, they will be able to do tons of damage. And the more damage they do, the more health they steal, the longer they live, so they can do more damage. It's a really cool cycle. And BB-8, if you find your R2 dying often, you can get BB-8 Self-Preservation Protocol Zeta, but it is not necessary from what I've heard. I personally don't run this team. I don't have resistance, but I definitely have heard if your R2 is dying often or dying early, the Self-Preservation Protocol on BB-8 can help. Now, once you get those mods, this team is capable of 3.5–4 million damage. Without those mods, I don't know what they could do, But I do know on Scavenger Ray, you don't really want a speed set. You're going to want a crit chance and offense set. And the same thing with Resistance Trooper. Crit chance and offense set until you get a crit damage set. And the same thing here. You want his triangle to be plus 30% crit damage. And his arrow, I think, should be speed. But I'll double check to make sure for you. And if it's not speed, I'll go ahead and let you know. And the same thing with Rey. You probably want speed up there for her primary stat on the arrow. Now, the next group that I saw, which is a Phase 2 group, because Phase 1, that Jedi Training Ray is all you're ever going to need. Yours is going to be fantastic once you get them modded properly. Now, Phase 2, you have the great makings for what we have called the Machine Gun Leia group. Now, this group is made up of an Akbar lead, whose mods don't matter, because he really doesn't do much. You just want him there for his leader ability. Princess Leia, because how can you have a Machine Gun Leia without a Princess Leia? Who you don't need her Zeta at all. You do, however, want a crit chance and a crit damage set when you can get the damage, offense until then, with the crit damage arrow like you've got, and here you want plus 30 speed. Because if you can get Princess Leia up to around 220 speed total, which is a lot more than what you have, and a good crit chance, crit damage set, your Machine Gun Leia group can hit 1.5, 2 million in Phase 2. Okay, now that group with Admiral Akbar and Princess Leia is combined with a couple Jedi who you've already got ready to go, and General Kenobi and a Zeta Barriss Offee. The Zeta Barriss will keep General Kenobi alive forever, and as long as Kenobi is alive, here Leia is going to be just doing a ton of damage. And with them, you want to throw in Grand Admiral Thrawn. You throw Grand Admiral Thrawn in that group, Scion can't counter, General Kenobi lives longer, and you can probably make it to Enrage. Again, it just comes down to mods. You want to get Princess Leia hitting as hard as possible. You want General Kenobi as tanky as possible, which means defense, health, protection. You want Zaris, or Barriss Offee, to have as much health as possible. And you want Grand Admiral Thrawn probably to have as much health as possible also. Because, you want him to live. He will get nice damage, but the goal here is for him to fracture Scion and to give turn meter to Princess Leia. Okay, that's our Machine Gun Leia group. So with that group, again, with just mods, and even with crappy mods, you could probably get 1 million damage with that group. It's just a matter of using Leia to kill the ads as quickly as you can, and she focuses down Scion until the ads are respawned. And use as few damaging abilities as you can, because under Admiral Akbar's lead, if you use an ability that doesn't do damage, you're going to call a rebel to assist, which will either Admiral Akbar or Princess Leia. So the more she hits, the more damage you do. Keep her stealth at all times, and she'll be hitting Scion for 10 to 11,000 per basic, which she can hit it with 3 times in a turn. So ton of damage available right there. Now, the next group I looked at is actually an Empire group. An Empire group capable of 500,000 to 1 million damage. Again, with the right mods. And this group is under an Emperor Palpatine lead, who you would want to get his Zeta. Now, this is going to be the first Zeta I would say you need to have, and maybe the only one you need to have for a while. But Emperor Palpatine, you really want to have his Zeta, and you want to get him moving fast, and probably a potency and a crit chance set instead of health. Because with his Crackling Doom, he's going to gain lots of protection, and we're going to throw a tank in here, so he's good to go. With Emperor Palpatine, you're going to want to have Darth Vader with damage, crit chance, crit damage, like whatever you can do to get him to hit harder, because his Calling Blade is going to do a decent amount of damage, even if there's not a lot of debuffs. And Darth Vader is going to be mainly your ad control. He's going to kill the ads. You're going to use Force Crush, throw a bunch of dots on the ads, use his Culling Blade, and really take out the ads with Darth Vader, while Emperor Palpatine may stun them and give offense up to your team and damage Scion. With them, you're going to want Grand Moff Tarkin. Now, Grand Moff Tarkin, the way he works is you want to do Grand Moff's attack to keep building and building and building and building potency, so that ultimately you can use ultimate firepower, which does extra damage based on his potency. So you want to get him 6 potency mods with as much crit chance and crit damage as possible, and possibly some speed, but it's not as necessary. And if you really, really wanted to, you could put a Zeta on his unique, but I don't think it's necessary, because he's going to be doing a fair amount of damage as long as you keep him alive. Now, this group's tank is going to be Shore Trooper. Now, Shore Trooper is the one that I would start gearing right away, because you really want him to be gear 12 in this group, because the enemies here do a ton of damage. And his mods, you want to get him as high of a health as possible, so all health mods with as many health primaries as you can find, and health secondaries, because of his regroup. He will heal your entire team. So he is a phenomenal tank, and he can be a good healer for your team if you can get him fast enough, and have enough health. So that's another Phase 2 team. Emperor Palpatine, Darth Vader, Grand Moff Tarkin, Shore Trooper, and with them you want to put that Sith Darth Nihilus. Now, Darth Nihilus, I mean, nobody needs to explain how to use him. Just drain force as much as you can, and then annihilate Scion. That's it. I mean, once you get that done, he's pretty much good to go. Now, those two groups can get you between 2 and 5% on Scion when you have the correct mods. But until then, there's a third team you have that could run really well that can help you get that damage. Now, for right now, it will be Phoenix, and I would say run Hera Syndulla lead with Kanan Jarrus, Chopper, Ezra Bridger, and Zeb. Now, I say that, eventually you're going to want to replace Chopper with Sabine, because her damage is ridiculous. You're definitely going to want her in there, and I would farm her from the hard nodes until you get her 7-star and then start gearing her up. You're definitely going to want gear on Ezra, and then gear Hera Syndulla, Zeb, and Sabine. Once Sabine hits gear 10, switch her out for Chopper. And then after you Zeta Emperor Palpatine, you can start throwing Zetas on Sabine, Ezra, and Hera Syndulla. And Zeb. I mean, they're all really good Zetas, and they can make for a team that can do up to 3 million damage. Now, with this group, you would want Hera super, super, super fast. Ezra, Zeb, and Sabine, you want crit chance and crit damage, I believe. Whereas with Kanan Jarrus, you want health and protection. Because he doesn't need speed, because his Zeta is going to give him a lot of turn meter. So don't even worry about speed on him. Zeb, I honestly don't know how to mod him. I know I said crit chance and crit damage, but he might need some potency. I'm not sure. I'll have to do some research and get back to you on that one. But they're a very strong Phase 2 team that you could definitely use. If you want help modding them, talk to Denos in Legions of Chaos. He has a really good Phoenix team. Or you can talk to Syansky, who is currently in Society of Chaos. They both run very successful Phoenix teams, as does Armand's, our glorious leader, and Sinisteroid in Society. He runs Phoenix on 2 accounts, so he's very familiar with them and their tactics. So if you want to know how to best run that group, talk to one of those 4 individuals, or all 4 of them, and see what the best advice they have put together is. Okay. Now, from Phase 2, moving on to Phase 3. Phase 3 is fun, and you've got some really good groups here too. You could run what we call the Chex Mix group with Commander Luke Skywalker, Raid Han, Pal, who you currently have at Gear 1, Level 1. Really only get him up to Gear 8 and max out his level. because he's only there to add offense up to Raid Han. And eventually, you're going to want to use Chirrut Imwe in this group, but since he's only 3 stars, the substitute in that group, which is somebody who can give Raid Han tenacity up, is your clone trooper Rex. Now, Rex only has to live long enough to give Raid Han tenacity up, so he doesn't need to be super high gear. So Pow to give offense up, Rex to give tenacity up, and then you're going to need an Imperial in that group, and that Imperial would be Death Trooper. Now, Death Trooper is there once you get a 1 saber killed, Death Mark Traya, and if Treya's Death Marked and you have offense up from Pow, tenacity up from Rex, hit standalone with Raid Han and just go to town on Traya. That group can get, with Rex instead of Chirrut, probably 1 to 1.5 million easy. So definitely use those guys. They're going to be useful. Get Raid Han as much crit chance and crit damage as possible. And the rest of these guys, mod them for offense so that they can give their offense to Raid Han. A similar makeup is going to be what Sinister Roy calls the Rolo YOLO group. Now, being a teacher, I'm sure you despise the whole YOLO generation, the phrase, but it gets the point across. And this group uses Rebel Officer Leia Organa. Now, I don't know how close you are to 7 stars on her, but hopefully we can get you the rest of those shards in our territory battle this week so that next heroic we run you can use her. And get her, you don't have to gear her up super far for her to be effective, because this team is only going to be doing 200 to maybe 300k. So with Rebel Officer Leia Organa, you're going to want to use 4 attackers, and I found 4 that have pretty high offense. You could use Farm Boy Luke Skywalker. You could also, you know what, let's just go through the attackers that you've got, because the attackers are going to give her offense. So the highest ones probably that we're going to have available is Boba Fett. Boba Fett can add his offense to Rebel Officer Leia Organa. Jedi Knight Anakin, who can give Rolo offense up. TIE Fighter Pilot, which has a ton of base offense. And with this group, you want to try and leave 1 saber alive with your Raid Han group. So just leave that 1 saber alive, and then when your Raid Han and that whole group dies, you can bring in this group here. Use Jedi Knight Anakin's AoE to try and proc offense up. And once that procs offense up, kill that saber, and then use Rebel Officer Leia's special on Traya, and you're done. That's it. You don't need a ton of retries. You just need to get these guys as much offense as you can. Kill the saber with Jedi and Anakin and get offense up, and then boom, you're done. It's super easy to run, and it nets, like I said, 200 to 300k depending on how good your mods are. And that's it. That's all you need for Phase 3. With those 2 groups, you could probably hit 2 million once you got them all situated and got the strategies down. Now for Phase 4, you don't have the Night Sisters, which is fine. We probably have enough Night Sisters in Guild, so don't even worry about them. You just need to worry about what are you going to use against Scion. Now against Darth Scion, there are 2 groups I think you could use that could be fairly effective. The first one is the first group that I say you really need to give a lot of gear to, and that's going to be First Order. Now for you, I'm going to change up the group a little bit because of what else you have to farm. For right now, there's nothing wrong with using Kylo Ren unmasked, though you will want a Zeta on his lead. First Order Officer, Kylo Ren, First Order Stormtrooper, and you'll probably want to use First Order TIE Pilot for now. And so we leave out Phasma and go with the other 5. Now, normally I would say farm First Order Executioner, but you really need mods. So I would recommend using your Cantina energy for mods and not even worry about the First Order Executioner yet. And the same thing with the First Order Science or Special Forces TIE Fighter. He's only farmable out of the guild store, and you need Jawa Engineer, so don't even worry about those two. This group is kind of be on the back burner for now, but just keep it in the back of your mind, like, hey, if I have some gear that doesn't go anywhere and it fits on one of these guys, give it to them. They're going to use it, and they're a really solid team. The Phase 4 team I think you could really use against Scion, is actually a Sith group. Now, this Sith group could use a little bit of gear, but you're going to lead it off with a Darth Maul. The Darth Maul Zeta lead works really well against Scion because whenever you guys are stealthed, Scion can't counterattack. So it's going to be super useful. And you would use Darth Maul with your 5 Sith that are 5-star we haven't used yet. Savage Opress, Count Dooku, Darth Sidious, and Sith Trooper. Now, Sith Trooper is a beast when you get him fully geared out, and you mod him for health, defense, tenacity. Those are all mods you could get. Savage Opress, his Zeta is nice, but you don't necessarily have to have it. Those last 2 pieces of gear, bringing him up, will be really good. He's great ad control. He can annihilate and obliterate the ads with overpower. And Count Dooku and Darth Sidious, they're fairly squishy in the fact they die super easily, but with the stealth from Darth Maul, they should last longer. So you really want to get your Sith Trooper as durable as possible, because everybody else is going to be stealth and he's going to be taking a ton of hits. So definitely work on that. And with that, Robbie, that's, what do we say, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 groups that you have in your roster practically ready to go. They just need to get some mods. So definitely try and check out some of those strategies for them. I can look around and make sure that I can put tags here to videos for strategy and modding so you can get them done. But really, we would like to see you hitting 5, 6, 7 million damage, because it is totally possible with your group, and you can do it. So especially with the summer coming up, you'll have the time off. Take a little bit of time, take maybe one day, get all your mods squared away, and you are great, ready to go. I would recommend using swgoh.gg to help you get your mods organized. It's what a lot of us use. It's super helpful. But once you get those, you're going to be killing it on this raid, and your damage will go through the roof, I promise. So with that, actually one last thing. Your arena team, if you switch General Kenobi for your CLS, I think you'll find you don't drop a lot of ranks in arena overnight. Just throwing it out there. It might help. It might not. I don't know. I don't run Jedi Training Ray, but if I see successful ones, they have Old Ben or General Kenobi in instead of Commander Luke Skywalker. So I'll just leave you with that and say good luck, Robbie. You got a lot of stuff going for you. You're going to be doing a great job. So just keep on trucking. Get that Jawa Engineer so you can get those crit damage mods, and you will be golden. With that, I'm going to say happy hunting, fantastic farming, and good luck, Chaos.